ready to make some excuses, Keith.
Sure am. Let's have some excuses. What happened?
I'll tell
what
you.
What happened out there?
I was all ready to move on from the game.
Sure.
And I get it. I heard some of Ninkovich today. He's like, hey, just enjoy the season. It was a good season.
It was a good season.
It was. I didn't think they'd get to the Super Bowl. I didn't think they'd win this many games. I didn't think they'd go this far. On some level, I get that sentiment.
Yeah.
And maybe we're getting to the point where you can do that. Just telling people to do that within 24, 48, 72 hours of just a horrible loss feels a bit abrupt to move on.
Yeah, you're allowed to have it sting. They're not going to play another game for several months, so you can still talk about the game, how disappointing it was, things you would have liked to have seen done differently, and be upset and disappointed with the loss, but also not freak out and be like, that was their only chance, they're done, or the season was a mess. No. We all recognize the season was a wild success. It doesn't mean the game wasn't very frustrating, and there also wasn't many things that even the coach himself, even though he may not want to admit it, could have done differently.
So I guess that's what's bothering me today, is it's like, okay, I was getting ready to move on from the game. But then Vrabel pulls that yesterday.
I was surprised by that.
Which me and you were both listening. We both looked at each other. The second he said, he was already making a bunch of excuses. And it's Jones and Keefe here on WEEI. We got a busy day today. Pure Hoops with Terp.
Yes.
At high noon.
Good day for
Some updates on Jason Tatum. Paul Bissonnette.
Biz Nasty.
Spittin' Chicklets.
Nice.
Going to join us coming up later on in the 1 o'clock hour today. So we'll cover the Celtics. We'll cover the Bruins. We're going to get to the Red Sox. I know the Twitch chat has wanted us to get to the Red Sox here for a few days.
We'll get to the Sox.
We'll do that coming up. Would You Rather Wednesday at 11:30. Hashtag Dork Minute. So a lot on the program today with all your phone calls. 617-779-7937. You can interact on Twitter and Instagram at Jones and Keefe. Watch along in chat, twitch.tv/BostonWEEI. Always, and I mean always, a healthy chat going on Twitch. Do the same on YouTube. Watch there, chat there. Just subscribe to WEEI. You and I exchanged a glance.
We did.
When he's talking about, a very knowing glance. When he's talking about, I just wish, we could wrap up and make a tackle. We could have had some interceptions. He was already
blocked somebody or whatever. So first it blocked.
Another one.
So he already had a very strong defense of Will Campbell, right? And that was a big takeaway from yesterday's press conference too. But asked about if he would do anything differently, because it was sort of an open-ended question, because going into it, I was hoping he would be asked some specifics. Why not go for two? I'm all for your reasoning. Maybe you have a great reason, but I'm curious, why didn't you go for two?
I would like to hear his reason. No one's asked.
Why didn't you challenge the Cooper Kupp catch in the first quarter? Why did you not go for it in the third quarter on 4th and 1? Why did Travion Henderson only return 1 of the 5 kicks? These are just some of the questions I would have asked. Curran asked him more of a, hey, is there anything looking back on it that you would do differently? And I'm like,
you would do differently, Mike.
Yeah,
Mike Vrabel, what would you do differently?
And he would have blocked somebody. He would have picked off a pass. And so he didn't say anybody with the block. No. I assume he's talking about Will Campbell, who allowed 14 pressures. But whatever. Maybe the whole O-line didn't play very well.
Yep.
So
he talked about not wrapping up and making a tackle. I thought of Milton Williams not getting Darnold a couple of times on a sack.
Sounded like Milt. And then he was like, you know what? I'm just going to straight up say a player's name. Because he was like, hey, maybe we come up with an interception instead of they have a catch. He's like, if Marcus catches the ball, you're like, oh, my God.
So if I were Marcus Jones had a great year. They gave him an extension, really high-end slot corner, great returner, though he didn't do much in the Super Bowl. I'd be annoyed if I were him.
Yeah.
And we said yesterday, Vrabel's just really hesitant to take credit. Take blame, rather. And that was a question about you, Mike, and what you do differently and schematically. Right. Would you challenge the Kupp catch? Would you go for 2? Would you make, an adjustment at halftime? Just coach the football team instead of just sitting here rah-rah-rahing them and saying, hey, guys, don't worry, we're going to figure it out. Anything different.
Yeah.
And he brings up Marcus Jones' name. And he talks about how they could have had picks and they could have had sacks and they could have blocked better.
The defense was pretty good, first of all. To be would you do anything differently? And you're like, yeah, I wish the defense played better. I don't know if they could have played a whole lot better. Sure, some of those, pass breakups, I guess, could have been interceptions. But on the whole, the defense was up to the challenge and they were great. The offense wasn't. But we're talking more about in-game decisions and something that we thought Mike Vrabel would have the advantage in against somebody like Mike McDonald, and maybe he didn't. Doesn't mean he's a bad coach. Just means he didn't have a great game.
He had a bad day.
Yes.
May's not a bad player. May had a bad day.
True.
Vrabel's not a bad coach. He had a bad day.
Yeah.
But he can't bring himself to say it.
No.
And so what have we consistently said about Vrabel and his messaging, Keefe? When Vrabel says something, what happens?
The players all echo it.
Interesting. So I didn't really make this connection yesterday when we played Vrabel live. The players talked before him. But Vrabel also has, addressed the team.
Oh, yeah.
Met with them. He met with the players before he hit the podium, before we heard from the players yesterday.
At least a couple of times.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we got just an avalanche of excuses yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
It started, we started the show with Vrabel. Again, chronologically, he actually talked after these guys. But it's like, oh, yeah, I don't know. Like, what could I do better? Geez, I wish we did a bunch of things better. Like, I don't know, the players got interceptions. Marcus Jones got an interception. It's an excuse. Drake May was asked about his shoulder injury. He initially said he wasn't going to get surgery. This is a separate answer, a longer answer, on how the shoulder injury impacted him in the playoffs and specifically the Super Bowl. Here's what he had to say.
I feel like my arm was feeling great all year. I don't think throwing really was the instance for my arm. I think it's, a case of, having him one, hit in the NFC Championship game. That was just kind of unfortunate timing and unfortunate kind of what, just like I said, the timing of it, and the 2 weeks was great to have off, to have a chance to be out there and be out there for my guys. And you can't blame things on injuries. Things happen like this all the time in the league. Was blessed this year. What a year of health and blessings for me this year. You can't stone it on one little thing on the shoulder. So it's just unfortunate it happened to be throwing one, but at the same time, I could have prevented it or made more plays. I was feeling like I was able to make throws in the game and was myself. So nothing that, I have anything really just much else to say about that.
Okay. Doesn't have much else to say about that.
No, I think he did it compared to like Vrabel, though. I think he was way more accountable for like, I could have made throws. Like, yeah, the reality is I landed on it pretty bad in the AFC Championship game. Had 2 weeks to go out there, but what are you going to do? It's football.
So, he is telling the truth there because I think something was going on in the shoulder. You can also say what you said all week and it's no big deal and I'm fine. But then all of a sudden you lose the game and it's like, well, geez, I had
to lose the game. You're
played horribly.
Missing throws.
I had to shoot it up and it was impacting me. It was something I had to deal with. And I guess I could have fallen differently, but it was a factor. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah. So that to me is, I agree, not as bad as Vrabel.
Yeah. No, definitely not.
But that's excuse making. You want to hear another player taking his cues from Vrabel?
Yeah, a guy that took a day to talk about it, too.
Here's Will Campbell, apparently your left tackle, at least for another year.
Well,
here's what he had to say about his situation.
It obviously wasn't 100%. I don't think, when you tear a ligament in your knee, it's not going to be how it was before. But I was healthy enough to go, and, I'm not going to say that it held me back, but it wasn't the same as it was before, obviously.
Yeah. I'm not going to say it held me back. I'm not going to not say it
but
either.
I for sure am. No, but that has to be what they're banking on, they being like Vrabel and the team. Like, if they're going to say Will Campbell is a left tackle, then they better hope that he was playing super hurt. Because if that's what he really is, or if that's close to what he is, then you might really need to consider moving him into guard and maybe find another left tackle. But if his knee was that messed up and that's the reason, that's how you're going to excuse away the playoff performance, then so be it. But, these guys were asked about injuries. They were dealing with injuries. I can't imagine everybody on Seattle was healthy as an ox. Sam Darnold was dealing with an oblique injury. He was actually more limited at practice than Drake May was leading into the Super Bowl.
Eamon Warren hurt his ankle on Wednesday. He was out there flying around the field.
He missed a practice.
So
or two, right? He missed two, I think.
He goes.
No, he was a full go on Friday.
It's like,
okay.
Yeah, but he
left Wednesday.
Correct.
He left Wednesday, missed Thursday.
Limited
full
Wednesday, missed
Friday.
Thursday, full practice Friday. Yep. So it's like, okay. He said it's never going to be the same. It's obviously not going to be the same. They should have just amputated it on the spot, Will, by the way you're talking about it.
That's right.
So
Robert Spillane was like banged up the whole time. He played every single snap.
You guys played like ass. Specifically, the ones we just played. May played horribly. Campbell played horribly. Vrabel coached horribly.
Oh, those were three of the guys that really let you down.
And they're all up there making excuses.
Yep.
Like, I got my shoulder shot up. And, it was a significant hit by Hufanga. And, geez, my knee's never going to be the same. And I wish Marcus had a pick. And it's like, that's bothering me now. 72 hours later, that's bothering me.
Sure, I have no problem with that. The Vrabel one bothers me the most because these guys were asked specifically about their injuries that they've had, documented injuries that they had. They were answering it, but they didn't go to the next. Imagine if Drake May was like, yeah, but if like Matt Collins could have brought that in, or like if Will Campbell was like,
true.
well, if Jared Wilson blocked the guy, then I could have blocked him. Like,
Josh,
do that.
If Josh gave me some help,
no, it wasn't anything like
it wasn't that bad.
It wasn't anything like that. It was obviously sort of like pointing out the fact that like, hey, if I was 100% healthy, it'd probably look a little bit differently. But they kept it to themselves. They only talked about their own play, their own injury. Whereas Vrabel really was shocking because, yeah, on the one hand, when they do well, he does give credit to the players. He says it's about the players. But you would think, you know, when you lose, and especially when you've made some bad decisions and the question is about you would kind of keep it to you. And even if you say, hey, I got to watch it again, or like right now I can't think of any or whatever, like that's fine. Like I don't necessarily agree with it, but it's fine compared to listing all these different things that happened on the field that you think the players screwed up on.
So do the Patriots have an excuse problem? I'm starting to wonder that after they lose the Super Bowl, because we talk about moving on and we talk about not having a Super Bowl hangover. And if you can't even be accountable for what happened, and there's excuse making and blame shifting over what happened, where you guys just weren't good enough, maybe Seattle was the better team. They certainly looked like it, but you guys didn't play well either. Both things can be true. Is that the way to get past a Super Bowl loss? Blame shifting, excuse making. Do they have an excuse problem? 617-779-7937. You had the idea yesterday, Keefe, of going through some pros and cons with Mike Vrabel. I think this is a big negative with Vrabel. Yeah, and I don't think he has a lot of cons as a head coach. There's a lot of good things he brings to the table. We saw it all year. There weren't a lot of losses, but when they lose, he can't handle the heat.
No, and there was very few opportunities for him to talk after a loss. Like that team was nasty this year. They lost games early in the year, but we hadn't built up the expectations yet, right? Like they lost 2 of their first 3 games, and then they only lost 2 more games after that?
Yep.
So there weren't a lot of times for him to hit the podium and talk about things that maybe he would have done differently. You know, it's a lot easier, and he had a couple good lines where he's like, hey, you know, we'd rather learn from things than a win, right? Like, so like, not that you play a perfect game wire to wire, but if you win, there's at least that, and you can be like, hey, we should have done this differently, we should have done that, but bottom line is we're 8-2, or whatever the record was. So we don't really know. I mean, I guess we do, but it's a small sample size of when the team has really high expectations and when the team is rolling the way that they are, and then when things don't go their way, how does he respond to them? And, you know, one of them was the Bills game, and then the other one is not until the Super Bowl. But this is also the first one where it's not as bad. So, like, if you lost at home to the Chargers, I think there's a lot more questions. You're the favorite in that game. If you lost at home to the Texans with no Nico Collins, there would have been a lot more questions. If you lose to a backup quarterback, like all 3 of those, they were able to pass. And then this was the one where it was the first time going into it where you're like, all right, it kind of is house money. They're not expected to win. Everybody nationally is picking the Seahawks to win. They're 4.5-point favorites. They were for 2 straight weeks. And they lost. Now, that doesn't mean you wouldn't do anything differently, or maybe you wouldn't answer things differently, or maybe you can still get out-coached, right, even though you're going up against a team that's better. You know, that's where you have to kind of find close the margins a little bit. If they have more talent, which I guess we were probably wrong on our tiers when we were doing the players.
In retrospect, the Seahawks fans were right. We were wrong, yes.
Let's say they have more talent. Well, then the next thing would be, all right, can you have the coaching advantage? And especially in football compared to the other sports, like if you do, what does that steal you? That steal you a couple of points. And wasn't the case on Sunday, and I guess now we have to wait and see how they respond.
So I think that's a big negative with Vrabel. And I get what you're saying. You can't lose to the Chargers at home. You can't lose to the Texans without Nico Collins. You can't lose to a backup quarterback. And on some level, this is a better team that was favored to win. It's the Super Bowl. You got all the way to the Super Bowl. Like, how is that a negative? They're way further than we thought. All those things are true. But now it's like the whole country watched. You guys were terrible. We all know what we saw. And you can't take ownership over it. And now you're going to blame shift to your players in the case of Vrabel, or injury in the case of Drake May and Will Campbell. So to me, I wonder if that's the best way to avoid a Super Bowl hangover. And I wonder if that's the best way to move on from a loss on the biggest stage, even though I give them a lot of credit for getting there. And I don't think it's fool's gold that they got there. I wonder if it's the best way to move on. And I think if you're going to talk about cons with Mike Vrabel, I really don't think there's many. And we've listed the pros a bunch. I mean,
he turned this thing around.
Galvanizes
overnight.
the team and relates to the players. Yep. And typically, which is what made it so jarring, he's a really good in-game coach, and he's really dialed in on challenges and when to go for it on fourth down and some of the analytical stuff, which I think Stretch helps him with. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff with Mike Vrabel. This, I think, is one of the drawbacks.
Well,
the ego can't handle the criticism.
And that's why it's one of those things where you're like, all right, if the worst thing about him is he's not great after losses, like, all right, simple fix. Don't lose a lot of games. And they didn't this year, and we'll see what it looks like next year. Obviously, the schedule's a lot more difficult, so I'm guessing there'll be a few more opportunities for him post-game to sort of respond to it, see if he kind of takes any of the blame, see if he kind of passes it on to players or other coaches or whatever else he does. But, yeah, that's something to watch for because I didn't follow that part of it super closely when he was in Tennessee. We would sort of see the wins and losses from afar. Obviously, he didn't get along with the GM by the end, but I kind of took his side over that, over the GM who traded away A.J. Brown. So, yeah, I think it's just another thing to sort of keep an eye on. We're not going to hear from him for a while, but, like, next season, like, yeah, that's going to be on the list.
617-779-7937. Do the Patriots have an excuse problem? Who does it start with? And is that going to help them move on from a loss on the world's biggest stage, at least the NFL's biggest stage? And on top of that, is it going to help them move on from a Super Bowl hangover? Again, 617-779-7937. We'll get to the Red Sox later on this hour. We got Celtics talk Pure Hoops with Terp coming up at high noon. Even some Bruins talk, Olympic hockey talk with Biz coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. Paul B. Sinnett will join us. Would You Rather Wednesday. Hashtag Dork Minute, jam-packed here on a Wednesday with Jones and Keefe. We'll get into our biggest concerns as they relate to Drake May right after Trending with Billy Lanny.